The other issue deals with the fiscal aspect, and that is the limited budget information that's been presented today leaves off key foundational information. It doesn't tell us what the current costs are today. It tells us there's going to be a change in cost, but it doesn't tell us what the current cost is. So we can't evaluate and assess, is that number correct and accurate? No accountant would be able to. The other aspect of it is it gives us a change number, but it doesn't tell us how it's changing, why it's changing, and we can't use that number to figure out what the current expenses are. The other part is revenue. The revenue numbers that have been released for how much students bring into the school district doesn't coincide with the number the school district, Minneapolis School District, reports to the federal government. The federal government has the number as $19,333 roughly per student. That's the revenue each student brings to the school they attend. The last plan I saw released by Eric Moore, which finally gave us some student revenue numbers, had that number down at 13,000. So that's a huge discrepancy. No explanation for why there's a difference in that. And that goes back to this idea. It's very, very easy to hide what the true cost of a program is by not releasing key foundational numbers. And that's what's going on here. I come back to, there's three reasons. One is there's incompetence. Two is they don't want us to know what the real financial numbers are because it raises too many other concerns. And three is that they just don't care what people think. And those are all really damaging to the school district in terms of how it relates to families in the district, the students, the employees, but also to our broader community here in the city. Why can an institution that receives so much in federal, state, and local government support, taxpayer support, be allowed to create a plan that seems to have no clear-cut mission, no clear-cut strategy on how to achieve it, and no clear-cut finances on how to achieve that and support that mission in the new plan. About 4 weeks ago, the transportation budget for the school district changed for this year 33%. It increased 33% more with no explanation given. That was really concerning because we knew fewer buses were running in the district. We knew that there should have been fewer expenses for the transportation budget, but all of a sudden it's increased 33%. So that causes me to further doubt the financial numbers that the district is proposing. So another large concern I have about the financial numbers of actually making this plan even be a reality that would occur is that the capital expenses have suddenly increased over $200 million from what was released 2 months ago. That updated figure just occurred about 4 weeks ago when the school district released some updated information. But $200 million is a huge additional expense. Why are the numbers suddenly changing? I mean, we all had doubts, especially I used to work in construction. I've worn many hats, as most first generation college students have, is my construction experience tells me that we can't retrofit school buildings for as cheaply as the school district claimed they could. We have new buildings that have just been retrofitted for middle schoolers who are now going to have to be retrofitted for elementary school students. Those are huge expenses, and vice versa. So there's all these capital expenses that are hiding in the wings that we haven't gotten concrete numbers for, or even estimates. The other big concern about $200 million more in capital investment needed for this plan to succeed, as reported by the school district, is $200 million more requires that to be through bonding. Unfortunately, the additional money pushes the school district deeper into debt. The new figure causes the ratio of how much loans the school district has to how much revenue they're bringing in to change significantly. And because of the new change, they actually have to get special school board approval to go into that deep a debt, and they also have to get approval from the Minnesota Department of Education to go deeper into debt, finance the building changes for this plan to go through. It's unknown if the Minnesota Department of Education would even approve the plan, because the state does not like when public schools go that deeply into debt. So that's one big, huge issue. We don't even know if this plan will get started and launched and then fail because it doesn't get the final financial dollars to happen. That's just to move students around and retrofit buildings. We have not seen updated figures for what the future financial information will look like from the district for every year for the next 5 years. It's a basic standard approach to how do we do long-term strategic planning. 5 years isn't even the end of it. It should be every year for 5 years, then what happens at 10 years, then what happens at 20 years. We have none of that information, and none of it is coming from what we can tell. That's a huge problem, because the school district's own numbers report that at year 3, the district will be too deep in debt, which then changes all sorts of information and financial information for the district. The price of their loans goes up. They have to get special approval from the state to ask for more bond money. Voters have to approve that bond money. There are all these unknowns. So are we just going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to partially retrofit buildings and then leave them deserted, which happened in Chicago, which happened in Detroit? And that is going to leave our community and our students in just an incredibly unknown situation, just within a handful of years after this pandemic that's not even over. So we don't even know the cost the pandemic is going to have for the way the school district does business every day, every month, every year. Without that information, we cannot begin to make plans for our future, for the future growth of our school district, for the future education of our students. Financial information, it's really boring, but it's extremely important, because if we don't have the money to retrofit school buildings, students won't be able to go to school in those buildings because of state laws. And we can't put our students into those situations. We can't put our educators, the teachers, the staff, the administration within the buildings to have to try to create solutions for problems that could have been easily avoided. Each time, all our educators have to shift their focus to try to deal with a very mundane problem. Is taking them away from the mission of educating our students, which is what everyone wants, especially them. Even if a district partially begins to retrofit buildings and then stops, that's construction that's been partially completed that is no longer an expense for a charter school to come in, buy or lease that building, and then retrofit at half the price to finish the retrofit of the school. Is this going to happen? Is this no, or who knows? I mean, we don't know, but we do know that the district cannot continue financially the way it's doing business today. And the numbers that have been released with the CDD plan definitely indicate that it cannot continue to do business the way the CDD lays it out, because there will be no money, and we know the money runs out in 3 years, if not sooner, according to their own numbers that they've released. What happens? I mean, it's mind-boggling. I've been to Detroit. I've seen what happens when funds dry up and buildings aren't left completed. We're not in Detroit, thankfully, but we have a very, very serious problem with the infrastructure of our schools. That's not in doubt. But the district has not told us and has not presented financial information to support, is it more expensive to do nothing with our buildings today than it is to do all the changes the CDD calls for? We do not know what the difference is. People who work in the district, work in these buildings, think that it's more expensive to move students all over the place than it is to continue to do business today. If the district is so sure that this is one way to keep schools open and to keep the financial health of the district, they should definitely release the information for how is it done today. How do the current trends, if we do nothing, compare to the massive moving around of students underneath the CDD? Without those numbers, we cannot make an accurate assessment. We can't make a a financial decision in the best interest of our students and communities at all. And if this was a major private enterprise, no bank would fund that loan without that necessary baseline information.